I want
I'll
to.
mute.
Yep, thanks. And don't be shy, everyone. If something's not clear, you put the brakes on me, and that's what Lindsay's job is too. If I forget things or whatever the case may be, just because I'm presenting doesn't mean don't have to be checked and balanced every once in a while as well too. My name is Alistair Tulloch. I am the province's pedagogical lead for PowerSchool, all things PowerSchool, and I'd like to introduce to you Lindsay McDonald.
Good afternoon, everyone.
What do you
I
do?
work
What do
I
you do,
work at
Lindsay?
EECD along with Alistair and the SIS specialists, and all things Power School related, mostly administrative Power School, not so much Power Teacher.
Right. Yeah. And we have our one of our our data and accounting people just left. We also have Yvette Seeley here. She is the one of the pedagogical leads in West. So welcome to Yvette as well too. And I see we have Darlene Franklin that's just joined us. Darlene, I've made you into a presenter like everybody else, so you can jump right in if you have a question. If you could just identify yourself when you say what your question is, and then we can go forward from there. Okay, so the reason we're meeting here today. This is a presentation for schools that take meeting attendance. That is also the same thing as like period attendance. So typically it's our 9 to 12 high schools and select middle schools in West and most of the middle schools in South. So what we're going to be looking at are a couple of things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to back up a little bit. Can everyone see my screen? If you can, just say yes or type in yes, whatever your preference is. On the screen, I have in front of you our latest data standard, provincial data standard around the attendance. And as you can see, July 1st. So this thing is, the ink is hardly even dry. What we did, as you know, the 10-year
Excuse me, Alistair.
Sure, yeah.
It's Sandra Lindsay, and I'm going to go out. I'm in an elementary school. Not sure why I got this.
Well, because it was sent out to a lot of people, so you could be on multiple lists. Are you signed up for another one?
No.
Why don't you stay? Because most of the stuff that I'm talking about is a duplicate, and I think you will recognize when it really is about the K-8 world.
Okay.
And if it's not, if you wouldn't mind reminding me, and to Lindsay, if you just how it can apply, I'll see if I can tailor it for you as well too.
Okay, thank you.
So you're not going to try to find other time to come to another session. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, great. First thing I want to show everybody is that we've got a few new codes that are coming, and this is probably one of the bigger changes right here. Our school programming. School programming would be used to replace things like guidance, co-op, also interventions, if things are being done with ISD or basically anything that is school sanctioned that represents a child doing something for school that is not sitting in the regular classroom. So if an outside agency is coming in to work with a child for the morning as part of their PLP, for example, maybe they're doing occupational therapy or what have you, and they're not attending to their regular classes, then you could actually log that in that they're going in for school programming. We had a request by the ESS people at EECD that we get rid of the guidance one in particular, because sometimes it's just not appropriate that we know that a child's getting guidance support, and this school programming is also a little more encompassing. One of the ones we've always had, but we're actually going to be using more of, is attendance not required. So if we think about high schools with exams, and there are days when kids have to be there and days that kids are not supposed to be there because they don't write on that day. Also turnaround days. Attendance could be not required for a student in our K-8 world because they're on a behavior plan and they're only coming in on alternate days. We can go in, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. We can go in and set them to be attendance not required for those sessions. Part of the 10-year ed plan, there's a new measure coming where we're going to be looking at attendance specifically and creating a new baseline. the question at hand is, what is the percentage of time that students are missing? And to accurately reflect how much time a student is really missing, we have to actually accurately reflect when they're required to be there, when they're not required to be there, and are they in and out of schools doing other things like sports teams and things like that, where we don't count a whole pile of codes to be either for or against the percentage of absences. So we're trying to do a better job of reflecting where children really are on a day-to-day and period basis. So we will be looking at attendance not required a little bit more. School activity, we'll also be looking at that, trying to use that a little bit more too. School team, at the high school level, we have gotten rid of the NBAA codes because all schools have to be registered in through that, so you're really on a sports team anyway. And all the other ones are the same, with the exception of the language around other informed absence. It's now going to be called this rather than other excused absence, because excused absence actually means we've actually agreed with the reason, and some people might say, I don't think that's a good reason why a child should be absent. I'm going to put it in as unexcused absence because I don't agree with that. So we're changing the language to say somebody has told us that a child is going to be absent, and it's now going to be informed absence. High schools and the meeting attendance middle schools will not be using the A and the P. That's AM, PM. That's going to be for our K-8 world. And we'll get into that as well too. Any questions about the data standard? I have included a copy for you in this meeting invite. It's pasted right in there, so you can download it for yourself and save it on your computer or print it off wherever it suits you best. I've also provided 2 other documents. All the information that we're going over today is going to be in providing reliable and valid attendance data, technical document for the administration and the administrative assistants. I put that in there too, and I also made a cheat sheet one that will tell you what you need to do each month, just as a little, you can pin that up on the wall and say, okay, I have to remember to do this, 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 and this each month, and that will help streamline our attendance data. Okay, so I'm in the EECD 9 to 12 environment, and this is a training environment, so all the names are fictitious, and so no data is going to be shared with people. All right, so the first part of our presentation today is about just revisiting the things that we already do in schools. I just wanted to come back to them because after doing some interviews with people around the province, we found out there were a few little discrepancies, so we want to make sure that we revisit the message and make sure everyone's doing it the same way. So the first thing I would like to talk to you about is the calendar. The calendar setup drives the entire thing in PowerSchool because it's all based on dates. So if you take a look at this screen here, this would be a sample of a correctly configured calendar whereby you select the day. So in an elementary school, this could be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday thing, or it could be a day A, B, C, D thing. Some schools have 2 calendars or 2 bell schedules. They'll have a regular day, and they may have a half day on a Wednesday, for example. So they would have separate ones. So you would assign the bell calendar, the bell schedule to this calendar. The next column is about saying whether a school is in session or not. So when this is the weekend, you can see there Saturday and Sunday, this would be the weekend. And when school is in session, we give it a value of 1. Now we discovered that there were people that were going in and changing the 1 to a 0.5 when there was a half day of school. We don't have to, the only value we put in here is 1. This value is actually multiplied by the code that you are using. So if you used a half-day absence code, let's say like in the K-8 world, you use an AM code, that has a 0.5 value for absence. So what we do is we multiply 1 by 0.5, and it says the child is missing half a day of school, and it would put that on the report card. In the high school world, each code is part of a day. So when a teacher says a child is absent for period 1, essentially it's 20% of the day. So there's a code that adds up for they've missed half a day based on how many periods they miss in the morning, and then half a day for how much they missed in the afternoon. So we always leave this at 1. In New Brunswick, we do not use the tracking feature, so therefore we need to make sure that all the tracks are turned on. We also discovered that people were doing this. If you can see what I'm doing, hopefully you can see that. For a half day, they were turning off the second half of the tracks, thinking like period 1, period 2, period 3, that sort of thing. We leave them on all the time. The type, that's the drop down of what the day is like. It is appropriate to have in session for any days that are open, but these last 2 columns, the type and the note, they do not impact on any of the attendance values on the report card. They also do not impact on any of the reports that are in PowerSchool as well too around attendance. So it's just good practice to have in session in these ones as well too. If it was a storm day, then it would be weather, and you could put some kind of message over here to yourself. Any questions about the calendar?
I have one, Alistair.
Yeah.
For high school, if it's a weather day, do you not change the 1 to a 0?
Yes, you do. So in this case, I was just showing you that you changed here. This is what it would look like for a weather day.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Exactly.
Do you need to take the check marks out?
No, you can leave the check
Okay.
marks in.
Sometimes I do. Does that affect anything?
It does not.
Okay.
And the reason we're letting people know that you can leave them in is that it's just time consuming to click them,
Yes.
and then to take them out afterwards is just more of your time.
Right.
So once the day has been set to not in session, then this stuff is irrelevant right here.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Who's this?
This is Melissa Shepard.
Yes, Melissa.
When I was doing my school calendar for for Christmas break and that, I put those all as holidays and put them all as 0.
Correct.
But really, it doesn't matter what I put in those side sections, right? Those right 2 columns.
Right over here, you are absolutely correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
There are times I think it's important that, because sometimes we forget what happens in the past, right? So, if you had infrastructure and over here, maybe you put furnace, right? This would just be a note to yourself, oh yeah, that's what happened on that day, right? So these are really just for notes for yourself, just to keep track of what went on. But you're absolutely correct. You don't have to use this at all, but good practice is to use what is in here to help us keep track of what days are. This is the really important stuff over here. Question, folks? Are we good on the calendar? A note about the calendar. It's important that you look at the calendar at 2 particular times. One is at the beginning of the month, one is at the end of the month, and the other one would be right before report card time. When you're doing for report cards, the calendar has to be adjusted and set at least 24 hours before the first report cards are printed off. In a high school world, that's not too bad because usually the office prints them off. But in a K-8 world, there are a lot of teachers that do their own report cards. The attendance data won't be correct if you have made any changes to the calendar and a teacher prints it prior to the rollover in the evening. There's a process that happens every night where data that is in tables in PowerSchool, because this right here is a table, gets pushed to other portions of the tables within the system. And if they print before the rollover at nighttime to the next day, then any changes here will not be reflected on the report card, and you could have the wrong dates. We had this happen before where Christmas wasn't turned off, right? Or maybe Thanksgiving wasn't turned off. And so extra days, extra possible days were showing up. And when we do attendance polls, attendance data, the values are wrong because we have too many in-session days, and therefore the percentage would be wrong. Lindsay?
All's good.
All's good. Okay. All right, so the calendar. Number 2, individual student attendance. So this would be for those reasons when you're talking about one child at a time. That would be the telephone call. That would be a request by administration to see a child. It could be a parent picking up a child, taking them home or to an appointment or whatever. In all of these instances, we go and actually select the child. So let's take this child right here. Let's see. I guess it doesn't matter. Is Dylan in any classes? No, Dylan's not in any class. So it does matter. How about that? So you go and select the child. We'll take Dax. So you select the child. You go to the attendance page, and this is a high school, so you're going to see meeting all the time, and you'll notice that it's done by the week range. So you click on the week that you're talking about, and then you select the actual code that you're looking at, and so maybe the parent calls in and says the child's going to be absent and it's on Monday. I just want to note here just a conversation about what you're seeing here on this screen. You can see there's an actual homeroom scheduled in this training environment. That is not the case in all high schools. It depends on how they're actually adjusted. In a K-8 world, your homeroom is the most important one because that's where the attendance is being pulled. So some high schools have attendance taken by the teachers, but high school attendance is not pushed to the report card. So, but we can push it and set it to all. You can see as it goes down, it fills them all in. And so you can put in whatever, message is appropriate. Mother called in, father said child's sick, whatever the case may be. And we recommend that you put your initials after the comment. So that if we need to chase down information because maybe something doesn't seem quite right, we now know who to contact if there's a problem. One of the things I always do is copy it before I close it, so because as you know, it doesn't push to the next comment, so you have to open up each one of them, which is too bad. It wouldn't set it to all, but it doesn't. And then you have to make sure that you push it all the way down. Okay, so, and that would be the same thing. Maybe the next day the office has called and they said they want to talk with this child. So we would be looking at an appointment with the administration. So that would be school programming. And so maybe it's period 2, and and then the teacher would see that comment and know that the child is out, because remember, this pushes to Power Teacher. It would be hard coded in Power Teacher by the teacher. Any questions about that so far? All right, in high schools, there are a lot of high schools that like to use this function. This is called a stored selection. I'm not going to go over how to create a stored selection because if you wish to use this function, I recommend you reach out to your SIS specialist and they'll walk you through it. So in this case, what we have is I've got a club and I've got some grade 10s, and the club could be a team or drama, band, MAD, SRC, whatever you want. And this allows you to grab those 12 students in this case, and you can blast the attendance to all those students, because let's say they're going out for a tournament and they need to get on the road early and they're traveling. So you make sure you have the date that's set. This is really important. We want to set this for scan for present only, because if you scan for all, it will take out other values such as maybe the parent already called in because of bereavement or whatever the case may be. And we want accurate attendance. So if the child was part of these 10, 12 students that I've just picked right now, we don't want to change the one that was called in by the parent. We want to only change the ones that were already in school and who are now traveling. So we're going to scan for our present codes, and we're going to say that they're going on a school sports team in this case, or whatever one is appropriate. It could be school programming, because maybe these kids are all going to addiction services at the same time, or a school activity. They're traveling for something for SRC. That would be a school activity. And then you put a comment in here of whatever that comment may be and your initials. And then you set the attendance. Two things just to review again. Make sure the date is right, so you're selecting the right day. This would have been perfect for me as the music teacher. When I was a middle school music teacher, we would have had a band list, and the the AA in the school could have blasted the attendance for the entire 50 kids I had in band instead of having to go find each one of them alphabetically from the start page. So depending on the size of your list, it could be faster going alphabetically, but it could be faster with a stored selection. Any questions about that? Here we go. The big one that I'd like to talk about is about supply teachers. When you have supply teachers in your building, I'm not 100% sure what your procedure is, but most schools, what they do is they send a piece of paper down to the office, and then the data is entered in by the administrative assistant for that period. It's really important that when you're doing attendance, you go find the teacher that's out sick, whoever that may be. Maybe it's this one right here, and you select the class that you're actually submitting for. So maybe it's language arts. When you submit attendance for the supply teacher, even if every child is there, you still have to submit the attendance for that day, and I'll show you why. In the background, students are automatically present if you don't submit, which in itself is not bad. However, it's not accurate because we also need to know that the attendance was actually taken to prove that they were present. So if we click here and we take a look at all the subjects here for Vincent here, and we go back to the start page and we look at the teacher submission status, you'll see Vincent is in yellow, because if we open up the box, you can see that attendance has been taken for language arts, but not all the other ones. So these won't be cleared up completely until the end of the day. I want you to notice that here in the high school, we've got actually high school on this list as counting in this school. But if you didn't want high school to count on this list, so that when you get to the end of the day, all of these are green and therefore the teacher's name turns green, then what we can do is we can set the high school not to count. And I'll show you how to do that. When you set up sections based on the teacher's schedule, and we look at the homeroom, we can go into the section number. And down the screen right here, we have exclude from attendance. This does not exclude attendance for the teacher. The teacher can still take attendance and see attendance data, but this right here will remove it from the teacher submission status page, allowing you to have a much more accurate picture of what has been submitted. So if I'll go back and I'll show you that attendance submission again. And if we check on Vincent, you'll see that the homeroom is now off the list. Vincent still has homeroom on here, and homeroom can still be taken attendance. There, I've done it, but we won't see it on the air quotes here, the important list that we know that needs to be submitted. Homeroom attendance at the high school level does not go on the report card, but schools can still track whether students are in their building at an early time to make sure that they're ready for their periods. In the K-8 world, this would work the other way around. We would want homeroom to be the only one turned on and all the other ones excluded, so that when the teacher submits their attendance for homeroom period and you go into the K-8 world and you run that, you'll see a green name. Actually, I think I can show you very quickly. I think I did that this morning, Lindsay?
Yep.
So right there, you can see there's me. My homeroom is taken. I teach other classes, but the only one that's really important is the homeroom, where if I take a look at this one, you can see homeroom was taken and art was not taken because the teacher doesn't take art attendance. Therefore, it always looks yellow, so you don't know which one was submitted. So you can have it vice versa for the K-8 world. There are times in teacher schedules. Let's see if it's this one. No, I think it's this one. Yes. In Elena's, do you see here in Elena's schedule? In period 4, in S1, there are 2 classes that are occurring at the same time. There's 10 students and then there's 1. So this would be the one child that's sitting in the back of the class doing an online course. So you can actually come in here, instead of having to take the attendance twice, you can click on the chair. You can click on, do you remember that sports team that I submitted a little while ago? There's the students that automatically that had their attendance taken. We can show multiple sections. Watch what happens at the bottom right here. You'll notice that it's going to add that one student now to the bottom. So you can actually submit the attendance for both of these sections at the same time. And if we go back to the teacher submission attendance, you'll see that both of them were taken at the same time. Very handy if to save yourself some time. Any questions? Lindsay, do you want to pipe in with anything, or am I okay so far?
I think so far so good. Yep.
Okay, so those are our regular daily things that we do. So I just want to review them quickly. We want to make sure that we're looking at the calendar twice a month, and also particularly around report card time to make sure that the attendance data is correct. Standard procedures in the office, if it's the phone call or the individual student signing in, leaving late, going to an appointment, the office or guidance that wants to see the child, then that would be an individual student. Select them on the start page, put their information and make sure you put a note and your initials. For the sports team or club, you can either do it individually, one at a time, or you can create what are called stored selections. The other thing we want you to make sure you do too is about the supply teacher, that even when the students are all present, that you still open up that page and click submit. Then we know that the present is a real present because somebody has actually said that they're there, as opposed to it being default. If you want the teacher submission status report, as you see on the screen here right now, to give you an accurate reflection, you can exclude or include sections to count on this page, and therefore you'll get a clean, you can run this at the end of the day, and if you've got yellow ones, it's not for a section that you don't want to count, it's for a section that actually didn't have their attendance taken, and then you can chase down the teachers for that. So those are the regular things. So I'd like to get into the new things that we're asking people to attend to. The first one is about half days. So that would be the case when students are going home at lunch because we know that they're going to go home because of parent-teacher interviews. So in that case, what we're asking people to do is we're asking you grab all your students. And once you've grabbed all your students, you're going to be coming down here to the group function menu and going to change attendance. Bearing in mind, Lindsay and I joke about this all the time, but it's so true. Talk to yourself out loud on this one. So, you're going to say, okay, I'm changing it for this date because this is the half day. And I'm looking at the last 2 periods in the day because the kids only went in the morning. And who was it that was at the K-8 school, K-8 world?
Kim is at a K-5.
K-5? Is it K-5? Kim?
And Sandra Lindsay.
Oh, and Sandra. Okay, yeah. So I'll get to you two just in a moment, okay? So this would say what you want to do is you want to scan for all codes, because this is the afternoon, nothing, and you want to change them all to attendance not required, because there's no school. So we don't need to worry about whether they're there or not because it's been closed. We can't set it to anything else because we still need to be able to take attendance in the morning. In the K-8 world, you would be setting it to the homeroom, and you would have a different drop-down list here because you would have the AM and the PM codes. You would put in there that for the afternoon, you would say attendance not required in the P for the afternoon. So we would know that these are all just half days of school. And then what day are we're talking about setting it to attendance not required here. Oh, I made a mistake there, folks. We want to scan for all codes, and we want to set it for attendance not required. And let's see, school closed for parent-teacher, and then your initials, and submit. But I'm not going to do that because it's every kid in the school.
Alistair,
Yes.
when you have a half day like that, do you need to go to the calendar and make an adjustment for that day as well for count?
No.
Or it's considered a full day because it's a scheduled PD?
That's correct. So Um, the report card and the attendance values count absences. So when you have a half day of school and a child doesn't come in,
Thank you.
yeah. So when the child doesn't come in, we don't say they're absent like illness. We actually say illness AM. Because school is closed in the afternoon, we have to make sure we use only AM attendance codes for those half days.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Because you know what, we found that happening. We found that schools were closed and attendance values weren't adjusted properly, and all of a sudden kids were out of school more than school, like they were absent for days that weren't even in session. Like if you put a suspension in, I'm going to get to that in a minute, but the example, if you put a suspension in and then there's a snowstorm, if you don't take that suspension out, the kid is actually missing a day when they don't even have to be there. So we're trying to eliminate that as well too, to make sure that our percentage numbers are correct. Okay, so that for half days we blast attendance not required in the afternoon, and we do not turn off the calendar because we still need the attendance values for the morning. Partial programming. So this would be the case of the child who is on a behavior plan and they can't attend school every day. So if I take this student here, what we're looking at is you go and find the student, and we go down to attendance, and we look at the week that their behavior plan starts. Maybe let's say it's this week here. The ESS team is met, and they're saying that the student is only to come in the morning, and so they're not going to be attending their afternoon classes. So we're just going to put attendance not required for the afternoon. And we recommend that you don't do this any more than 1 week at a time. Because if you take this and blast it for the entire semester, for example, and then things need to be changed, you have to submit a help desk request to the SIS specialist, and they're going to go in and clear the data. It's much easier just to manage over a short period of time to make sure that the data is right. And putting in whatever appropriate code. I wouldn't put a lot of details in about a behavior plan, because remember, teachers can see all that stuff. So you could put IBSP and then just put refer to plan and then your initials, and again remembering to copy it before you close it so you don't have to type it every time. Although I'm sure many of you are faster typers than I am. So if we submit that, and now we take a look at the attendance for Christy, you can see that we have XXs in the afternoon. Now we have a lot of high school students that already have partial programs, and they would only be scheduled for classes in the morning, and they wouldn't have anything in the afternoon because they'd only just have a half schedule anyway. We wouldn't have to do this because there would be no attendance for the afternoon because there would be no classes. What we're seeing here is very typical in alternate learning sites where kids don't have to come to school on Wednesday, because a lot of alt sites have that's when the teachers have their prep periods, so they don't have to come in the afternoons, and a lot of alt site teachers will come in here and put XX in for those students that don't need to be there. In the K-8 world, when you're doing this, it would be the same thing. You would click on the X, and you would only be setting it up in the homeroom only. And I don't have the AM PM codes here because that's just for the K-8. But if the child only comes in the morning, then in these right here you would put XXP, meaning they don't have to come in for the afternoon. You don't have to fill in all these other ones because these don't actually count on the report card. Any questions, folks? All right, so there are a number of times when we're asking schools to use attendance not required more, and here are a couple of categories. One of them would be for turnaround days. If you're in a high school that has other grades other than 9 to 12, K to 12, 6 to 12, you can't turn the calendar off on the turnaround days because the other grades still need to take attendance. So what we're asking people to do is leave the calendar turned on, and right in here you would type in grade level. Pardon me as I make mistakes. grade level in 9, 10, 11, 12. And what this will do is this will find all the students in those grades, and it would exclude the other grades. And what we'll grab all those kids, and then we're going to change their attendance for the turnaround days. So we would set this for the 2 days in January, the 28th and the 29th. Again, speaking out loud to yourself. And we want to change it for all the classes. And we're going to scan for any codes that may be in there because there's no school, and we want to set this to attendance not required. If you are a 9 to 12 high school period, just all alone, just no other grades, all you have to do is go into your calendar and just turn them off to not in session, because they are non-contact days for the students. If it happens to be a storm day for the exam week and you need to push it along, then you just select the new dates that are in there. And right here, this would be high school turnaround days. And with your initials. So that's one of them. The other one is grad week. Grad week are actually considered contact days for students by the collective agreement. But we don't require students to come in on those days. So for that last week of school, we have to do the same thing. We have to grab all the students in 9, 10, 11, and 12 and do the exact same thing that I did here, but making sure that your date range is for the time during grad week, which is usually this week right here. And then you would set it to be scanning for all codes, and you would be setting it for attendance not required. Sorry, attendance not required down here. School activities. So there's a lot of times in high schools where, and also in elementary schools and middle schools and things, where you'll have activities that are going on where kids are not in their classroom. So I'm thinking like MAD. MAD may come and do a presentation, and they're coming to do it on period 4 and 5. So you would do the same thing again. The attendance may be taken in period 4 because the kids start in period 4. The announcement over the intercom is please take attendance for these children, and then the attendance would actually be school activity because they're not taking academic courses at that time, but they're taking a school sanctioned function where they're not in the classroom, but we still need to find out if they're there or not there. And so if they went to the activity and we now need to blast it to the rest of the kids, we are not going to scan for all codes. We're only going to scan for the present codes, because if there was a bereavement already in there, or a suspension, or an illness that a parent called in, we don't want to wipe out that data, but we do want to change it so they're actually attending to a school activity. And put it whatever code it is, maybe it's MAD. And then you would press submit, and that would change the attendance for all kids for only the kids that have present values currently in the system. It would not overwrite anything that you may have entered in the morning, that type of thing. We've been telling everyone that these things are new, and some of it is a little complicated, and we're asking people to reach out for help if you're not 100% sure on what it is that you're supposed to do for these. You don't need an answer today sometimes. Sometimes you can just come in and say, okay, I'm going to fix that tomorrow, and then reach out to my SIS specialist. Talk to your administrator. What do we do in this case? Reach out to your data and accountability person, because they're also part of this process as well too. The last one is exam week. During the exams, kids don't have to be in the building every day for every course. So depending on your school, a lot of schools will have, say, period 1, you write your exam on Monday. Period 2, you write your exam on Tuesday. During the other schedules are all language arts exams are going to be on Monday, all humanities will be on Tuesday, science on Wednesday. We're asking that the teachers make sure that they put in XX for the classes that are not in for the day. And the reason I tell you that is because you may have a supply teacher in at that time, and you may have to submit it for the teacher on their behalf. So if the child's exam is not being written on that day, they should have attendance not required for the other periods that are not being written on that day. But more of that will come through the administrators rather than through you folks. Any questions so far? And the last one is for when there's a snowstorm. There are many times in schools where attendance is entered in the future. So a parent calls in Monday and says, my child is going to be out on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for an appointment and tests at the hospital. So on Monday you enter the data in, and then all of a sudden there's a snowstorm on Thursday, and that would be an attendance value that's in there that's in the future. Even when we turn off the calendar to be not in session, that day will show up as an absence on their report card. So what we need to do is we need to clear any attendance data, future attendance data, to make sure all those kids are reverted back to present before we change the calendar. So this is what we'd like you to do. On the start page, select all the kids. Under System Reports, NB Reports, run the period attendance by class. All the students, all the teachers, all the periods, so you can leave it unselected for all. And then you set the date for the storm date, whatever that was. If it was a 2-day range, make this a 2-day range. If this was let's say it was yesterday, and you come in here and you'll just come in and you'll move it back 1 day, and you'll run this report for that 1 day. Once you click submit, there are no students for that had any future attendance values put in for that 1 day. You're safe to go in and now change the calendar to be non in session. If we had run that report for today, because I think we do have values in here for today, these students here would have to have their values put back to present before you go in and change the calendar, because right now, depending on which code it is, they'll actually show up as an absence, particularly for suspensions. We can't very well count an absence for a day that they're not even required to be there for. Again, if you're not sure what to do with these processes, reach out to your SIS specialist and they'll walk you through it. Are there any questions?
Alistair, I have a question. It's Melissa Shepard again.
Yes.
Is there a site for supply teachers to be able to submit their own attendance? I thought that I had heard that recently.
You are completely correct. It is the PowerSchool Substitute Teacher Sign-In page. And that decision is being made by each district and each school level, whether you want to do that. In the documents that I've created, I highly recommend it, but it's not my position to do that, because the supply teacher needs to have access to a computer to do it. If the supply teacher has access to that site, I've actually done the document for the administrators so they understand how it works, then they could actually submit it right in the classroom, right on the smart board in the classroom if it has one, or if the school has loaner laptops, they can actually give one to the supply teacher. And as long as the supply teacher has an email account, they can log in, and the system will automatically authenticate based on their name, and the submission, they'll know they're a supply teacher, and they'll come in and be able to submit on behalf of the teacher in the classroom.
So all supply teachers do have, they would have access to our school, because we were wondering if we would have to put them in to authorize them to our data.
No, you wouldn't have to.
Okay.
There's when they log in on the computer, there's an automatic authentication process in the background that recognizes that they've logged in, and when they go to the supply teacher page, the school sets a password that you have to give to the supply teacher.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. So the school manages the password. When they get to the supply teacher page, there's a drop down. They get to select the school that they're in, And as long as they know the password for the school, then they can go in and then select the teacher that they're in for and do the attendance for that day. The big hole in the system is that, well, if they know the password for another school that they're not in on that day, could they not go in and actually change the attendance at another school on another day? And my answer to that is yes, but why would you do that? You would just be shooting yourself in the foot, and nobody would hire you again because you're not trustworthy. So it's
are you able to see, I'm sorry I'm asking so many questions, but
no, this is why we're here.
Are you able to see, okay, well, supply teacher A, Mrs. A was in, and she did the attendance for a certain day?
That information can be requested at EECD, and they can track it by login IDs.
Perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, again, the information can be found, and why would you do that to yourself? Are there any other questions, folks?
It's Sandra Jenkins. I'm wondering if you can just show me again how you exclude sections.
Sure. So you can do it two ways. You can either go in through the teacher schedule, or you can actually go down in through the sections section down here at the bottom. And I don't know which classes I have. Let's see. I'll just click on a few here until I can. There's one. So if I go in here and you click on the section number right here, and you scroll down, it's right here under exclude from attendance. So in the high school, we would want this not turned off, except for homeroom. And in the K-8 world, we would want this turned off, and we would like this, and we would want this not turned off for homeroom, because we want to count homeroom attendance for the daily schools, and we want to count the classes for the high schools.
Thank you.
You're
I've got one other question. I'm a K-12 school.
Yes.
So it makes it more complicated doing attendance two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way, because my 6 to 8 students are still tracked by period attendance, but it only goes in under homeroom for attendance for the report cards, can I switch it that it's tracked for their period instead of their homeroom?
So, question to that, depends on whether your school is set up with a conversion to calculate the periods. They may be, what goes on the report card now? What's been entered by homeroom, or what's been entered by the teachers by periods?
By homeroom.
Right. So you can have it done by periods. And then they would give a new attendance conversion code for your 6 to 8 students as well too, and then it would be like your high school. But do all your teachers take attendance for every period?
They are supposed to for grades 6 to 12.
Okay, so the expectation is that they do.
Yes.
Yes. So nothing stops them from still having to do that. And then also take attendance in homeroom as well. But I see what you're getting at. If they just do it in their periods, then you don't have to worry about whether it's done in homeroom.
Correct.
Right. So the answer to your question is yes, it can be set up that way. You just have to put a request in through your SIS and talk it through with your administrator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think we had an administrator here on the call, if I remember correctly. But maybe not. Yvette, I know you work with teachers. I'm putting you on the spot here. Is there anything that you can bring to this that you've learned by going out and talking with people? Or anything you'd like to add?
Not really. I think you covered a lot of it. I just think it's following up with teachers and making sure they're consistent daily.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to take responsibility for that within the school.
Right.
So that's just something you have to look at.
Yes, I feel for the AAs because, they have to do the safe arrival and they're always hounding people to get their attendance done on time. And same thing for high schools. They're calling out names over the intercom at 3:30. Get your attendance in. Yeah, completely agree. Lindsay?
I think you've covered everything.
Okay. I want to
So
thank.
where will we be able to find those cheat sheets you were mentioning earlier?
It's actually right in the link invite.
Perfect.
And so here's the link invite I sent you, and it's right here. There's one here. That's the This is the document that has everything that I went over today. Here's the data standard, and then there's this cheat sheet one right here that shows you basically what you have to do month by month.
Great.
Yep. And the last thing I want to show everybody is our PowerSchool playbook site. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. You're going to know it soon. So if you go to the one site, down here on the left-hand side, we've got what's called our PowerSchool playbook. And the playbook has got filter options where you can search by your audience. So for you, you can click on AA. You can click on your level. You can find out what task you need to do per month based upon the documents we have here. And if you click on attendance, because that's what we're talking about here today, there are a number of documents and videos that you can watch to help you. And also see, there's that chronological summary sheet I was just talking about. It's actually right up here now. And according to this, we've got couple of pages. We've got 15 documents specifically for you on attendance for AAs at the 9 to 12. You can remove that and you can put it in for K to 8. Most of them are many of them are the same because the processes and management of attendance are very similar. But so yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to show you, and the videos are great because they're kind of a nice little summary of things without having to read through a document. You don't have to print anything off. Yeah. Lindsay McDonald, thank you so much again.
My job was much easier today than this morning because of having everyone open and available to talk.
That's right.
You didn't even need me.
That is not true, and you know it. Need that support in the background. It's important. Anyone else? Does anyone else have any questions? I will stick around for a little while if you want to ask a question after others leave, or you fire away, whatever. I wish you all a successful year. Good luck with everything that you need. And as ever, please submit your help desk requests. Reach out for support. It's better for us to be on track, right from the beginning instead of having to go back and fix things that were off track. And thank you, everyone, for your thank yous in the side panel. Much appreciated. Okay, I'll just stay here and I'll let you ask questions if you need.
Back at the beginning under new codes
Yes,
and school programming,
yes.
there were 3 choices. What were the, how do we know which one there to use?
In the data standard itself, do you mean like the difference between AM and PM and SP, or just
School programming.
Are you a 6 to 8 or 6 to 12 school? What school are you at?
9 to 12.
Okay, you don't even see the SPA or the SPP.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll only see school programming because you're only going to have that option for that period.
Okay.
The other are for AM or PM.
Okay, great. Thank
Sorry,
you.
interrupted there, Alistair.
Oh, no, that was the absolute right question to ask. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think I'm going to sign off. It seems like everybody has
So
been
everyone
well
seems okay.
informed.
Well informed, yes. Thanks again, Lindsay. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank
Cheers.
you.
Okay, bye.
Question that has not really got to do with attendance, but it is PowerSchool.
Go right ahead.
In the beginning of PowerSchool on the homepage, there's an area, you know how if you were maybe doing a school team and you wanted to make that section and you wanted to be able to call it back up, a stored search.
Yes.
I get confused on that, how to do it and make sure everything's pushed and how to find it again.
Right. Okay. So So this would be a stored selection. So the first part is that you have to actually build the list of kids.
Right, and that's over on the right-hand side.
That's right. So I'll just use this list here just as an example. But
Okay.
if we select by hand, and you can actually go through. So I want this kid, this kid, this kid, this kid, and maybe a couple of pages later, I want this kid and this kid, and then I update. Sorry, that didn't work. And then I update my selection.
Yeah.
So however many. So let's say this is my debating team, because it's. And then so from here you've got your 5, and then you do a stored selection, and you give it the name. And maybe a year, that you would put with it as well too, just so you know what it is. And I'll be honest with you, I have played with these add filters, create, to any selection and every selection. These are complicated.
Yes,
And
they are.
They're very complicated, and I've played with it, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't figured out exactly what I'm getting in the end. I know I have to do more work with it. So I've always recommended with people that when you're starting off your school year, get rid of the old one and just build it again, because 9 times out of 10 they're not the same anyway. They're usually very different. So as long as you save it as a new name right here and then just click submit, it'll be added to your list.
Okay.
Okay, so you can actually publish these as well too. So if I go like this and put little check marks on these, and then I click it here, notice under publish there's no P. I'll just use one of them as an example. I'll use the one we're using now. And I publish this. You can create lists that other people can access.
Other staff members.
Other members who use PowerSchool. So no teachers could access it. But if you make this, you now can put it in there for administration or the guidance counselor or whatever. So others can see these lists as well too.
Okay, like I have an admin assistant, so if I did one, she could see it, and if she did one, I could see it.
You got it.
Okay.
And then, so if we're back to here, you'll see I don't have any students here. If I want to go grab those kids now, I just click on stored selection, and I just click on go functions.
Okay, now that's where I was confused.
And you'll see right up here at the top where it says current student selection, you can see there's the kids right there. So they are right now, if I go back to the start page right here, so you can see I now have them. And just a nice little note, if I click on these ones, here's my 10. This group function page that I landed on right now,
yes,
right here, is identical to the same options that you have in here.
Okay.
So once you've landed on this Go Functions page, you do not have to return to the start page to then go and do a group function here. It lands you right on the group function page, which is kind of nice, so that you don't have to do a couple of extra clicks.
So it saves the selection of names, but not necessarily the form that you had typed them in the beginning.
That's correct.
Okay.
So this is really all you're doing is taking everything that this is just grabbing them and just creating them as a list, and then now you can do things with them.
Yes.
En masse.
So it's faster because you're not looking them up every time.
That's right. If it was the debating club for 5 members, how often are they going to go out? And really 5 may not take you that long anyway. But if, like the football team for some of our high schools, that's a huge list. It's like 50 kids across many grades.
Yeah.
I would take the time and create the list once, and then you've got it.
Yeah, because you do like driver sheets and things. You need them all the time for that stuff too.
That's right, because then you can print the reports, the medical reports, their contact information. You just grab them every single time they need to go somewhere.
Oh, so there's a report that you can make that adds that information all there?
Yeah, so once I've got my students, so let's say I have these 12 kids here, I can come up here to System and then MB Reports, and there's a medical alert listing.
Yes.
And then there's the student medical summary as well. And there's also, as soon as I can find it, You can see I'm not in here very often.
But there must, like the data form,
The data forms right here.
like information like their Medicare, their phone for emergency, that kind of stuff is
Yep.
all there. So
That's right. So
Okay.
you can once you've grabbed those kids, you can actually print off that list, and medical alerts. You can do their diabetes plans, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
so that you can have a complete list when kids are going on overnight trips. You can have the most up-to-date information that pulls from their demographic information and their medical alerts.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do they have any PD or other link sessions planned with different things in PowerSchool? Like I've used PowerSchool since the beginning, but a lot of the finer, really great advantages of PowerSchool, we don't have time to play around and learn them.
Yeah.
So things that help, like other secretaries, I'm sure would be helpful to everyone, how to quickly find things that you use all the time.
Yeah. Like the searches that
making
you can
reports
do.
and things are vague in a lot of ways. Like I know in like FHS and Leo, quite often there's one secretary who just does this, and they get good at it because that's what they do.
That's right.
But for us, when you're using it here and there, it's a little harder to know what advantages there are.
And you don't use it very often, and then you forgot what you did the last time.
Yes.
Yes. If you would like to send me any topic that you would like to have covered, I will run sessions like this throughout the year for administrators and AAs on just even revisiting it because they haven't had time, and I can set up sessions and do that just like I'm doing this week for the attendance. Absolutely.
Right. The other question, and I sort of know the answer, but supply secretaries, when you call them in, and I know they're only allowed access to certain things, but the girl that I have here works 15 hours a week, so I train her on some of the things I want help with. But in a lot of those girls' cases, like, how do they ever learn how to run some of these programs if there's never training for them?
That's right.
Not that they have access, like, say, to my personal workings, but it would be good for them to know how things work and how they run so that when they do fill in, they don't feel like they're lost all day.
That's right. So do your supply AAs get an account? Do they can log in themselves? And
we usually, if we're going to be out, we notify Richard Green, and he gives them access to attendance and only certain things, which I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think I know that a lot of them would like to have the training on some of the things, just not that they can do it for the school necessarily, but what if one of us was out for 3 weeks?
Yes,
then no one has access to some of those items, and it would be helpful if some of them, could have training on that.
And also, too, they may land a job next month.
Right.
And then they're cold.
There they are. Yes, they are. And I know that they feel that way. So just another little heads up on that, too.
Absolutely. I will make sure that I bring that along to Jean-Guy to talk about that with the SIS specialists, because that would be their role. I know when we were doing I'm from North, I'm from Bathurst, and when we were doing the implementation up here, I actually ran 3 or 4 sessions for supply AAs alone, and I did the same training with them that I did with our regular AAs, with this sole thought in mind of what you've said, is that we need people to function when other people are out.
Right.
So you don't have a big pile of stuff on your desk when you get back.
Yeah, and not just that, but just so that they do, because attendance has to be done every day regardless.
That's right.
So if they know how to do it correctly, then you don't have to go back and try and fix things later if someone's out for more than a few days in a row.
That's right. I will bring that up because it's an excellent point. It's that ongoing piece, isn't it? It's like we're really good at the implementation, but we have to make sure we sustain the capacity over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I found this very helpful.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm really glad. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.